Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast do not reflect the views or opinions of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Make sure you like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please rate this podcast 5 stars where applicable and leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We're on another midweek bonus episode. Kind of reviewing the negotiation update in what our president of the NRLCA was saying. So, with no introductions this evening, we have James, Bill, and Toasties with us, along with myself. So we'll cut right to the chase. Go ahead and take it away, guys.
What you got, Bill? Of your notes?
What do I have? How about the most common comment that we've seen so far is that we can't get back the time of our lives after watching that video. It's painful. It's really painful. Again, from last week, it's uninspirational. Here you have the president of 130,000 carriers telling us that they've spent hundreds of hours with teams of experts and consultants, that the entire national board has been addressing multiple proposals as mate approaches, which is the expiration of our current contract. He also goes on to explain that the national board, with several teams of consultants, advisors, and legal consultants, will address the issues and strategize the best prepared arguments and possible positions for their negotiations. When he sits there and says, our foot is on the gas because our proposals are derived from hundreds of resolutions the membership passed at national convention. But Don, why did you tell us that you only want to present 20 to 30 if there's hundreds of them and you have all these teams behind you? Why aren't we going through them? Of course, he said we have to whittle them down because some are duplicating in nature and they have to pick out the best for the majority of the carriers. No, you have to pick out the best for all carriers. Everyone that affects any damn carrier should be addressed and should be proposed. He's got a sharp focus. Unlike his speeches, it's a sharp focus, and it's on the economic gains for all rural carriers and to undo the harmful rules by arbitrations in the past. Mr. President, you've been on that board for years. You have been one of the people that has let our negotiations and our step fours go to arbitrators. So these arbitrations are the basis of people not doing their jobs, not presenting the best arguments, best positions possible to represent the carriers. Anybody who's been outside of the post office, when you go to an interview, one of the first things that you ask about, of course, is salary, because you want to make as much money as possible. The second thing you ask about is benefits. You want to know what type of medical benefits, leave benefits, family support type, programs that are available to you. Third, and this has always been in my case, I want to know about why the position is open. Depending on that answer, I want to know what type of atmosphere your company offers. And then I make a decision. In regards to the post office, most people come for the possibility of a career and earning a decent living wage. There is no work environment to be ingrained in a conversation during an interview because it's toxic. We're not worried about just the monetary gains, Don. We're worried about the protections from harassment, intimidation, threats, and being forced to do things against the contract because you have failed, you and the entire national board have failed to give the teeth to the national steward system to protect the craft. Everybody on the national board, everybody as an ADR and above in the national steward system are paid to protect the craft. You have failed the job miserably. It is time for you to go. Money's not the only issue. It's a main issue, but there are a lot more problems in this craft than you have any idea because you don't run your route. So stop running your mouth. Get the hell out of the way. We're coming to take over. End of rant.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill. And the things that I pulled out of this and I'm going to, because I've been asked specifically to make sure I quote him as accurately as possible here. Granted, I am using Google's YouTube translation, the transcripts from his video, because I wasn't going to sit there and try to type them out as he was talking. The things I pulled from that, the first thing I pulled from it, our opening statement was directed not only to the Postmaster General, but all the Postal Service executives and their bargaining team that were present for the opening session. I'm sorry, didn't you call him Lewis 3 times in the opening statement? And now you turn around and call him professionally on this after you called him nonchalantly in your opening statement to the craft? You're showing us your hand here that you have less respect for the craft than you do the Postmaster General. The Postmaster General is your best friend because you call him by his first name. Then you go on to say the Postal Service had their own opening statements. Unfortunately, we were not permitted to record those, but your national board and our legal counsel were present to listen and take note of what they had to say. Okay, what did they say? You said you took note. Well, if you took notes, tell us what they said. Give us an idea of what their thought process is in this whole thing. You want us to be open and transparent here. Tell us what they said. Your entire national board has been involved in multiple main table sessions with the Postal Service bargaining team, and we have put forth multiple proposals. I'm sorry, you've already done multiple proposals since the initial opening. You're either looking at the proposals or you're just throwing proposal after proposal at each other and not really reading what they say. Because there's no way you could have that many proposals in that fast amount of time and actually know substantively what's in them. We have many weeks of main table sessions scheduled with the Postal Service to not only put forward our proposals, but also to receive proposals from the Postal Service. Things typically start out slower and heat up as we draw closer to the expiration of the agreement. So you said above, you've already had multiple proposals, and now you're saying there's going to be many more weeks of that. Which is it? You guys are just throwing proposals at each other and not even looking at them? Just taking things off and throwing another proposal at them, just not even looking? And you say they start out slower and heat up as you draw closer. Does that mean the papers are going to fly faster as you get closer to the expiration date? This round will be slightly different as we have our foot on the gas from day one and have no intention of letting up. So if your foot's on the gas, you're accelerating things, you're trying to get it done quickly, how much are you going to actually miss? You got to pay attention to this because just like any other legal tender document that you have, people slip things in them all the time. Look at all the legislation that is passed with 7,000 riders added onto them that nobody bothers to take a look at. They cherry pick the ones that they agree with, and that's what they run that proposal through on. Is that what you're doing here? Cherry picking what's good and just ramming it on through? We work collectively as a board to determine which resolutions are most impactful for the majority of rural carriers. As Bill alluded to earlier at SWAC, Maston admitted he likes to go with 20 to 30, but closer to 20 the better. So you want to just affect the majority of rural carriers. So as long as 51% of carriers are affected by it, it's a majority. How about you listen to the craft? The craft put forward resolutions on things they felt the craft needed. It went through their locals, their states, and through national to be approved. That means thousands of people went through these resolutions and agreed they were important to the craft. Not just a majority, the whole craft. Again, some are more likely attainable than others, but make no mistake, work rules are being put on the table as there are many contractual provisions that need improvement. That's the point of resolutions. To make things better, to improve things for the craft. And yes, I agree. Management's not going to agree to a lot of the things that people put forward. That's their job, to get us paid the least amount of money possible with the least amount of issues of grievances and things like that. But you've got to understand the craft knows what it needs. That's what resolutions are. Your job is to use those resolutions to negotiate us the best contract ever. And you've said multiple times through everything you've done that you don't want everything that's the best for the craft. You want the minimum possible with the minimum amount of work. And you said your biggest focus is the economic games and to try and undo harmful rules imposed by arbitrators of the past. How about the harmful rules that were implemented by previous contract negotiations that didn't go to arbitration? What about those ones? You didn't say anything about them. Then he says, while we are committed to attending all these other meetings and sharing information with the members of your states, we are also deeply committed to put in the hours and the effort required to negotiate a contract, and this may impact the amount of time some officers are able to be in attendance at some meetings, speaking about conferences and state conventions across the country. You did this through the last negotiation. You had no problem attending all these events. Are you starting to get craft shy there, Maston? You scared of the craft? That you can't stay and attend these meetings? That you have to run off back to your best friend, Lewis? These meetings are important to the craft and important for you to understand what the craft's going through. But then again, back in 2022, when that lady was standing in front of everybody, crying her eyes out, begging for the board to help, did you help her? Did you get down off of the stage and console one of the craft members that was upset? Or did you just sit there and not care? The problem I have with this is you're so focused on putting your foot on the gas and getting things done that you're not listening to the craft. You're not focused on the craft.
I'll go ahead and add something to what Bill was saying about going into an interview and hiring and everything like that. Yes, pay is important. Yes, the work environment's important. One of the biggest things for me was schedule. I see these UPS guys, FedEx, everyone else out until 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night still delivering. One of the biggest draws for me to the post office and why I continue to stay is it gives me enough time to actually get home. But that's me on my route that I know forwards and backwards and upside down. There's a carrier in my office on the newly created route right before our RECS got into effect that she's coming in at 6. And yesterday she didn't get back until 6:30 because her mapping has been messed up because they've been giving her help, but she's still only considered a J route. That route is so under-evaluated because this our ECS system doesn't keep up like the old system with the 4003 used to. We used to be able to make changes. We used to be able to do everything that we needed to do between these counts to go ahead and keep, somewhat close to what our evaluation really was. Is that part of the negotiations? Is that going to be part of the contract? Are we going to have something like the former 4003? Are we going to have a new PO 603 anytime soon? What else is going on besides just the economics? Yes, the economics will be great. Don't get me wrong. I would love to be on table one. That would help me out a lot. But I also want to know where we are when it comes to PO 603, our duties, responsibilities. What can I point to when I have something that I disagree with management on? Especially today when we had a stand-up talk about, oh, you're required to take a lunch now. I don't care if it's a minute. I don't care how long it is, but you're required to take a lunch. Okay, well, supposedly a lot of the stuff in the former PO 603 is gone now. So I can't refer to a lot of it. I can still refer to most of it, but what are we doing against management? What are we putting in? Give us some information. Give us a little bit of transparency. Like James said, what is the post office proposing? What are we proposing? What is going on? And just telling us that we're focused on the economics, great. That's one piece of an entire 100-piece puzzle. Where are we?
That's exactly it. You hit the nail right on the head there. The post office has proposed stuff. The union has proposed stuff. Both sides have thrown it out. Guess what? Now you can come on and talk about what was proposed by both sides because both sides have seen it. And therefore, there is no need for cover of that. You can be transparent about it because it's not going to be used again You're starting with that and getting closer to each other with that. So tell us what the gap was.
All right, I'm going to interject and give my 2 cents right now. Why it's still fresh in the brain. You know, I will say I appreciate the attempt of transparency with these videos. I do appreciate the attempt. However, there is no transparency. I mean, obviously, if you've proposed it, they've proposed it. If it's something that you guys have agreed on, please share that. Because obviously it's already something that's been agreed upon. What would be the harm of sharing it with the membership? Now, if it's something that was proposed and turned down, proposed, turned down, you both came to agreement, okay, this isn't going to work, where's the transparency on that? You know, if you're still in talks about a specific thing, or it hasn't been brought to the table yet, I can totally understand not putting that out there. But if there is something that has already been agreed upon, or has been completely nixed off the table, if I was in that position and starting to put these videos out, I would be like, all right, yes, we have been in talks, in early talks, we have agreed to ABC. Unfortunately, D, E, and F are no longer on the table. You know, you still have G through Z to talk about, and we'll update you as those talks come about or conclude on those topics. That is the type of thing that I would want to see in these transparency videos. If that is what you are actually trying to do, is bring forth transparency with the videos. Because listening to it, I got a whole lot of words with not much said towards anything other than stuff we already knew. Am I in the wrong there?
No, not at all. You know, it was funny because at SWAC, when I was making my speech for running, one of the things I said is we have to reach out to the Gen Z that's eventually going to take over our jobs and take over our routes. We need to learn how to reach out to them in a new format. And when Don went on later and he said, well, we do have Instagram, we do have all these, YouTube and everything. I don't know why people think we don't. It's not that you don't have it, it's that you don't know how to use it. If you block comments, you block engagement. If you block engagement, you block a reach. Only the people that saw the video are the ones who are focused on this, who are looking for it. It's not going to just come across your page if you like the NRLCA page on Facebook, unless it has a lot of engagement, because that's how algorithms work. If they don't understand that, they can't communicate this message to the entire craft. So the entire craft still doesn't know what's going on half the time because there's no reach. There's no engagement.
Yeah, he's a true politician. All he's doing is giving us stuff that we already know that they've done. And like the comment earlier, if you've been negotiating since the signing of the last contract, then how come you have to be putting hundreds of hours with teams of consultants, advisors, and legal advisors if you've been working on this since you signed the last contract?
I have to agree with Toasty on, the not using the algorithms like you should, number one. Where the engagement with the craft. I know, if I, but in the off chance get elected, Bill gets elected, any one of the three of us, I mean, that would probably be one of the number one things are going to change. We want to hear from the craft. If you're that pissed off that you got to MF us on Facebook because you're that upset, you know what? You're going to be the first person I'm going to call and say, hey, what can I do for you to make this better? And
as president, I will let the vice president take that call.
Thank you, because I probably have a little bit better tone with them. Those would be the people that I would want to reach out to and say, hey, I see that you are very upset with something. What is it that I can do to help you and and do to get on the road of changing your mind and how you look at the union right now? What can we do for you? Those positions are elected positions by the membership. You work for us. Our dues pay those salaries. And you turn off any type of engagement with the craft. I mean, I totally get having the link to the website to then go to the Facebook post, or not the Facebook post, excuse me, the YouTube post, the YouTube video. I totally understand that. Membership to view the video of what's going on in negotiations. I don't have an issue with that one bit. But when you're turning off the engagement to anything else, even as simple as Mailbox Monday and new class of RCAs or anything like that, where the membership can't even congratulate somebody, comment on how odd a mailbox is, you can take those negative remarks that people are going to shoot off because now they have an opportunity to shoot off that remark they've been holding back for so long. And you can turn that into a positive, or attempt to anyways, and reach out to that person to find out what we could do to make it better for them.
And see, building on that is that if people see that they actually have a union that cares, they see a union that's actually going to get involved when you say something, and that they're going to let you know and give you information and provide value, that'll bring the non-members on because they're going to see value in the union. They're going to say, you know what, it is worth my union dues for this type of union. If I actually get a say, if I actually am heard, I will join.
Well, they'll be encouraged to be engaged. They'll say, oh, wow, they actually are doing something. That there is value in being a union member. I have an opportunity to make change. I have opportunity to speak my piece and be heard.
Now,
and that's the opportunity we have to give them.
Now, I'm going to bring this up to the three of you, since we are all running for national board at the current time. I was thinking one night, what about, and I had mentioned about popping in on local meetings and stuff like that, a lot of some of these counties and regions that have like a summer family cookout. You know what? If I'm on that board, send me the notice. If that's a weekend that there is nothing else going on, I will go in unofficial capacity. I will go as a member of the craft on my own dime to come hang out with you guys in street clothes. You know what I mean? That getting in touch and communicating with the craft in those means. That wouldn't, no official capacity, on my own dime, nothing. Just tell me what side dish I need to bring for the potluck. Stuff like that is a little going above and beyond, but when you're not engaging with the craft on a regular basis, and that's what the craft wants, is to know that they're being heard. Because none of us feel like we're being heard.
And that's like I said, if in capacity that you're attending a convention, okay, what's wrong with getting permission to go visit a local office in the area or two, prior to the convention and after the convention? I mean, it'll cost what, maybe one more hotel night, but if you could reach out to an office and address the issues in person, think of it. If you have a rural carrier as the president instead of a politician, how much more confidence does that give you to get involved in saying, wow, if this asshole could do it, me, then I can do it. I can get involved. I can make a difference. That would mean, God, you know what that would be like if somebody walked into our office and said, hi, I'm John Adams in the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. It's like, well, what are you doing here? I'm here to, see if you guys have any concerns. 2 hours later, they'd be sitting there going, okay, that's enough. But the thing of it is, that type of situation doesn't exist because, like politicians in Washington, they're so busy shoring up their support so that they can have another year in office.
Yep. And if I'm elected by the people, I'm working for the people. They're my number one concern. That is now my job, is being mama bear to the whole craft. But in a way, I still am for the whole craft. That's where my best interests are and would be and will always be. That means friends of mine downstate are having their annual picnic in July, and, it's a multi-county thing, and I just happen to, hey, I think I'm home that weekend. I'm just going to go as a normal union member to go hang out with my union family. And I'm sure I would get a whole earful. But, it's just the minute things of engagement. Not like I said, not necessarily going that far, but just engaging on the regular would make a ton of difference.
It would. I mean, I go to my local and it's, people are frustrated from one station. Another station is just kind of there to try to get information. And then you have one person ask the ADR or the DR, well, why did it, this happen and that happened? And then they didn't get the answer they like and they walk out. You see every single little microcosm basically at your local. So why can't, as a board, you go to a local one, go take a little drive, go to one of the other locals, see what's going on in that area, what's going on in that district. We need to be engaged, and we're not getting that engagement right now,
No.
which is why we want a new board.
We're going to give the national steward system teeth, and we're going to make sure that the local stewards get as much training and support as we can possibly give them.
Yeah, I completely agree on that one. Our local stewards need, quite a few of them need good support and reinforcement. And if we've got local stewards that are not doing their job and have the title to just have the title because they can, I don't know. I don't even know where their heads are when they take that title and don't do anything to help their offices.
And trust me, being a local steward is not easy. You have to represent people that you personally don't like, that you personally would despise. But like a trial lawyer, a defense attorney, you have to protect every person as if they're right or innocent. And you have to do it to the best of your ability and put your personal feelings aside. Can't do that, then you shouldn't be a steward. But for those who do it, I applaud you, because I know how many hours I put in on grievances and never got paid for them. Over and above. Calls on vacation, calls on Saturdays and Sundays. It was more important for these people to have the information available to them, to file grievances if necessary, than to sit there and wonder, what should I do? Everybody in my office knew they could call me because I gave them my number. And whether they like me or not, I represented them the same as if they were my own brother and sister.
I
Well,
did
let me
that.
respond. Let me respond to that.
Okay.
My goal, as soon as I get into office, if I'm elected, is to get all the DRs and ADRs together in contact with me and work out a plan to defend the craft. Because the biggest thing I know is there are many DRs and ADRs that I'm going to rely on out in the field to take care of the craft. I have several so far that I've selected that are going to be my points in several states to start out with. They are the top of the line DRs and ADRs that I have talked to. They defend the craft. They do the job the best they can. Some of them go above and beyond what they're paid to do. And the thing about it is, it starts right there. When we get up to step 3, step 4, that's national territory. But I want the boots on the ground people. I want the people who are defending the people in offices right now, because those are the most important people in this craft. Then once I organize and find out who all's willing to work, who's not willing to work, and things like that, I'll make the changes as necessary, working on through the system. But the main focus as I start out is stopping the rampant abuse. The rampant beatings will continue until morale approves, because that is what we're dealing with here. Management is going to continue to beat us into submission until we just go, you know what? We agree. We're good. You no longer have to beat us anymore. We'll do whatever you say. That's going to stop as soon as I'm elected, because our craft does not deserve to be abused. We have a joint statement for a reason, and we are going to use that. I am going to use MOU 25. I'm going to make sure that management that has constantly abused carriers can no longer supervise the rural craft, because I'm tired of hearing of carriers who are just constantly abused and nobody's doing anything about it. Management's not doing anything about it. And I'm talking about the management of the management's not doing anything about it. And then once that's taken care of, I'm going to work on getting the supervisors of the managers who are causing the harassment to come down on the carriers, because those ones need to be brought in line too. Our craft deserves protection, and it deserves people to step up and do that protection. We have some that do. It's time to get them all to do it.
And folks, as you're listening to this, and you've listened to the video on YouTube of the contract updates or any other updates that Don's put out, which one do you see as the bulldog? Do you see Bill, James, Kristen, and myself as the bulldogs that'll take care and protect? Or do you think the current board is currently doing that? Which one do you want protecting you?
I just want to address that I did have a correction from our this past episode, most recent episode with the 45K. It's 53 to 55 standard hours, which is a 44K. I do thank the listener that brought that in to my attention, as well as everybody else, and I didn't have the contract in front of me. It's not an issue that I have dealt with personally, so oops, I was off by an hour for evaluation. I'm sorry. And this is what I'm talking about with engagement with the craft, not, we may misspeak. Everybody must speak. I've known of national board members who have misspoken to craft members and insisted they were right, but then couldn't turn around and admit, I am so sorry, I gave you the incorrect information. It was brought to my attention. I want to make this right, and this is the correct information. And thank you for bringing that to my attention and for me to double check. I do apologize. Why can't we be like that? But no, it's, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all misspeak. And, I don't put myself above anybody else. It's the little stuff like that, though. It's the ones that think, you're supposed to be working for us, but yet you believe to be above us and better than us, when we're the ones that are boots on the ground, working in the trenches, day in, day out, dealing with piss-poor management that treats us like slaves and dirtbags and gets away with it no matter how much. We have a grievance process, but when the grievance process fails us, time after time after time after time after time, where's the people at the top that are supposed to be looking out for us?
Amen.
If I find of an office who has tried to time after time after time after time again, and they're getting absolutely nowhere, and it's not getting any better in that office, I want to know about it, because I'll be damn sure it gets taken care of. And if that means I personally have to go down and beat on the door of headquarters to say, who's in charge of this region? Okay, who's your guy below you? Who's the guy ahead of the postmaster? I want him now. And I want all you guys right here, right now, because this has to get taken care of right now. But we don't have that. It'd be nice if we did, because I know of a lot of offices that are in pretty toxic environments that the JSOV could be used many, many times over. But, they're pleading for help and they're getting nowhere. Why?
I cannot tolerate how some management treats their carriers. The total disrespect of them being human beings, let alone the contract. Just common decency towards another human being. It's almost like you were brainwashed into this situation, and you're just following orders from above, and like everybody says, it flows downhill. And guess who's at the bottom of the hill, folks? We are.
I just think, they want the transparency. They're beating around the bush on it. Hey, look, here's a negotiations update. And where was the update?
He told you. They're talking. Post office is talking. They're talking. Post office is talking. That's what the update is.
Sounds like the episode of From A to Arbitration. We're going to talk to them. And if that doesn't work, we're going to talk to them some more.
And then we're going to talk some more. And then we're going to go back and talk some more. And yes, I actually caught up on all that yesterday.
If that doesn't work, we're going to go back and we're going to talk to them some more.
Boy, I'm impressed.
But no, it's I think you have 4 people up here that are talking right now that have similar mindsets on issues. We are 4 completely different people, as you all know, and we see the craft as a whole, as because we are members of the craft. We are getting our hands dirty every day. We are taking the bullcrap from management every day. We are trying to fight the bullcrap from management every day. And we're trying to look out for our coworkers every day. Go ahead,
Let
Bill.
me respond to a comment here from Box Jammer. Money, 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 money. Forget everything else. You know, in 1982, I was offered a substantial amount of money to stay with the company I was at, and I refused the money on the grounds of my principles. Okay, I'm a highly principled person. Thing of it is that money isn't everything. You know, you can have millions or billions of dollars, still not have happiness or anything. You need money to survive, you know, to provide for your family and everything else. Yes. But being able to go to work and have an environment where you enjoy being there with your coworkers, your management works with you, the clerks work with you, everybody, you know, works towards a common goal. And the common goal is to get the product, your mail, your flats, your parcels up the door to the customers. That's your common goal. The problem of it is that they lose sight of that. And they lose sight of the fact that they're dealing with people, with individuals. We once had a situation where a quiet carrier was always stuck to himself and always did a great job. And nobody ever knew anything what was going on in his life. And one day, supervisor asked about a missed delivery. Unfortunately, they didn't bother telling he wasn't on the route at that day. They just said, "We have a question about a missed delivery." This guy flew off, and I mean epically, to the point where 3 of us had to hold him down, walk him outside, and keep him from entering back into the building. To find out that his wife had just up and left him, took the kids, cleaned out his bank account, and trashed his car. You don't know what's going on in an individual's life at any time. You don't know if they're dealing with an ailing parent who has Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or a child that has an illness that, you know, they have to be at certain doctors at certain times, certain treatments. You don't know their marital status. You don't know anything about them outside of what you do with them at work for the most part. So be respectful towards each other. Be mindful that things are going on in people's lives outside of work that you're not aware of. If you treat everybody with respect, you'll get it back. If you work together, everything flows smoothly. As soon as you start one iota of contention because you're the boss, or I'm a clerk and I'm not responsible for this, or I'm a rural carrier, I don't do this. Don't push the wrong button. That episode could have ended horribly. Fortunately, EAP, some time off, the guy came back and was a good carrier until he resigned and moved out to Oklahoma. But you don't know what people are going through.
No.
And yes, men do talk, okay?
Yes, they do. I know. A lot of them talk to me. Well, and that's similar to like that letter I read in the most recent episode. That RCA who had potential to be very involved and help make a difference resigned because they denied him leave for the birth of his own child.
The biggest thing is I love being a rural carrier. I love being out there. I love seeing my customers and stuff like that. But I know there are carriers out there that the thought of going work and getting in there and dealing with all the stuff that's going on makes them physically, mentally, or even spiritually ill. And that shouldn't be happening. The thought of going to work, yes, it's a job. It's a task that you have to do in order to earn income to be able to support your life. Being scared of going to work, afraid of what management's going to say to you or what's going to happen today, There are carriers that are scared they're going to get shot on the job. There's carriers that are going to get scared that they're going to get robbed or beat up by a customer who's mad that Amazon didn't deliver their package, but they blame the Postal Service for it. We don't have the protection that we need in this craft. And there is a bill in there being sponsored right now, and contact your Congress people for it, to protect the carriers on the route, protect the carriers from the public. There's nothing in there to protect the carriers from management. That's the job of union leadership and the NSS, to protect the craft. I was just in management chat the other day, watching them talk about disciplining a carrier for taking time off to go to the funeral of the uncle who raised them like his own son. You want to talk about being disconnected to humanity? Disciplining somebody for going to the person that raised them's funeral is absurd, especially when this carrier, through constant question asking, had never, ever called off before. Think about the mindset of a manager wanting to discipline somebody for that. And that's an easy win for a union steward. That's a walk in the park for most union stewards.
When we start protecting the rural craft and city gets their changes that they're trying to do and protects their craft, it's going to start rolling over to the clerks too. So when everyone's protected, we don't have to worry about this management asking for, a note when you took a sick leave day to take care of your kid. One of our clerks quit because she took one day off, take care of her sick kid, came back and they were asking for documentation. She quit on the spot. And she was one of our favorite clerks on the rural side. We need to fight management on these ridiculous standards and everything that they're trying to take an inch of so they can eventually take a foot. Because if we protect ourselves, city starts getting their changes, protecting the city craft, the APWU is going to see where we need to protect our mail handlers and our clerks. They're getting it done on the carrier side. It's just going to roll over and start protecting all of us that do the work. All of us that deliver the mail, get the mail sorted. Everyone sees, we are the face of the post office, not the supervisors, not the managers, not the postmasters, not the POOMs. A little bit, DeJoy at the top because he's the figurehead, but no one else sees all those. Your customers see you. You see your clerks who are busting their butts in the morning, throwing all those packages, especially the heavy ones that come in from Amazon in the big giant boxes. And they're busting their butts for you so you can get out to your route, so you can get done faster, so that way you can go home to your kids.
And our clerks, our window clerks. Again, that's face-to-face contact with customers. Mm-hmm. Our window clerks, our city carriers, our rural carriers, all of our leave replacements, PSEs, PTFs, CCAs, RCAs, ARCs in some areas on Sundays and holidays, and quite a few offices I've seen pretty much throughout the week and running mail on Saturdays as well. Once you have, yes, economics is great. We'd all like to make some money, especially with the way inflation is, and we'd all want to be paid better, because the luxury of what this job used to be when there was wait lists to get in, and RCAs were hired in as regulars off a register roster, and all that, when it was such a coveted job. Now we're short-staffed to where you could have an office with 2 or 3 routes and you have one carrier total. You have offices where regular carriers are working 7 days a week to make sure the customers are taken care of and gets their stuff. You have people who get sick, or God forbid, something happens to them or a family member, and they're forced to take time off, and they come back only to see that their route hadn't been touched, their customers hadn't received their mail. And all management's caring about is the numbers. and disciplining those carriers that are getting worked to the bone, that are about ready to drop dead and have to call in sick because that's the only way that they can get a day off. These are the people we need to take care of. These are the offices that need the attention, that are getting away with this crap on day in and day out. And it's not going anywhere. And we're worried about economics. You know, like I said, the money would be great, but I'm more worried about the work conditions. You help improve the work conditions. Morale will go up. Morale goes up, full staffing comes back in. And economics, yeah, we'll play a little bit in that, but it's the work environment, I think right now, is number one.
If all the unions stood up together and fought management and got management to adhere to the contracts in every single local office, then these POOMs would be trying to get down on the local postmaster, and the local postmaster will turn around and say, "What do you want me to do? I've paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars in grievances for the shit you've been spewing at me, and that's gotten us nowhere. It's time for you to start changing your mindset because I can't do anything with what you're telling me to do because they've got a solid union behind them." So now it starts going up the chain. So now the POOM has to start adhering to the contract. The POOM's starting to go through all the contract manuals, all the documentation that he can to try and find some little loophole he can use to rain it down on us carriers. And then when it doesn't work, he's going to contact the regional POOM. And that POOM's going to turn around and get upset because he's not able to rain it down on the district POOMs, who are not able to rain it down on the local POOMs, local postmasters. He's going to have to change his mindset. And it works up the chain. And eventually it gets up to national. That's how you fix the system. The problems start at the bottom, so work your problems up to the top. It's going to have to be a hard-fought battle, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the people who want an easy job. It's not for the people who just want to sit back and collect a paycheck. It's for the people who want to see this craft survive, who want to see it last, and who want to see the next generation of RCAs become retired rural carriers.
And those of us newer rural carriers would like to know that we have a retirement to look forward to. 45 years old, going regular. I know there's plenty of them that went older. But I'm looking at 20 years. I want to make sure I'm going to have something at that 20 years if my body holds out that long. But I also want to make sure that everybody below me has something to look forward to as well. And wants to stay because they know that that light at that end of the tunnel keeps getting brighter and brighter day after day after day. And they know that eventually they'll get through that tunnel and all will be well. But they're not going to hold on to looking at that light get brighter if they're getting treated like shit. You know, it's like many have said, we don't have a hiring issue. We have a retaining issue. And when you can't retain the employees and they go back and they talk after they've quit because you've treated them like dirt and nobody's taking care of management and letting them run over these people, they go back and tell their friends and they tell their friends and it trickles downhill. Now you have nobody applying because you couldn't treat your previous employees decent. So now you do have a hiring problem because you can't retain. I think the work environment has to be right up there equally with the economics.
And let me kind of branch off the economics there. I responded to a lady that posted that she's been working 7 days a week, basically for the last 2.5 years. The fact of the matter is, she's table one is understandable that she's trying to make up for lost money, and she made an extra $20,000 last year, and so on so forth. But the problem of it is that you don't have any time for yourself. You don't have any time for your family if you're doing that. And that chews you up. I worked 2 full-time jobs, the post office and a company called Southco, for 6.5 years. I averaged 4.5 hours sleep every night for 6.5 years so that my wife could be home and raise our children until they got into first grade. That was something I thought was worthwhile so that when my children went to school, they knew how to read and write, and they were socializing with other children, all the things that I grew up with. And it's a shame in this day and age you can't live off of one paycheck. Even with making that money, you have to sacrifice a lot. And you shouldn't have to sacrifice for your job like that. If you're money hungry, hey, more power to you. But the fact of the matter is that you shouldn't have to do that. And
Yeah.
yes, table 2 has to go. But don't put this job before your family, ever. It's not worth it. No job is.
I completely agree. I've made a lot of sacrifices, especially while I was in RCA, and a lot. I mean, going 3-4 months in between seeing my youngest daughter because I was working 6-7 days a week. You know, not being able to attend my daughter's cheerleading competitions, band festivals and concerts, softball games, soccer games, you know, essentially watching my kids grow up. You know, I was almost denied to be able to, and this was before RCA's earned leave. This was, 7 years ago, 6.5, 7 years ago. I was almost denied the time off to go watch my son graduate Marine boot camp. I just looked at him and said, I'm going. You can say no all you want, but I won't be here. You know, stuff like that. There has been a lot of sacrifice. I mean, all of us have sacrificed at one point or another for this job. And we shouldn't have to sacrifice our family. We shouldn't have to be denied the day off, the day that our child's being born. We shouldn't be denied going to the funeral of a relative that raised us like their own, even though they weren't our biological parent. But management doesn't see it that way. Management doesn't see you as a human being, and that needs to change. And the only way that's going to change is if we have a very militant union that's going to put their foot down and say, absolutely not, you're going to treat these people like humans because that's what they are.
You're going to treat them with dignity, fairness, and respect, because that is what you want from us, and that is what you need to give us. Because respect isn't given because you have a title. Respect is earned by the actions that you do. If you turn around and treat people like they're beneath you, or treat them like they haven't gone the path that they should to get where they need to go, then you're part of the problem. There are people that say that people shouldn't be where they are because they haven't earned that position by following the same path that has been the same for many, many years. Well, my question is how has following that path worked out for you? It doesn't work. Sometimes you need to inject new ways of doing things and new ideas. And sometimes it takes people willing to actually step up to do it. And if you're not willing to step up and fix it, then at least help those who are.
Mentor those that are coming up. You know, you have a whole new breed of rural carriers that are coming up as many are aging out. You know what? Why not be the mentor to those people that want to stand up and help protect the craft for the future? Why does it have to be? I mean, if it was that is the only way that you can attain those goals is to work your way up the system, then why isn't that in writing? That it's not in writing because that's not how it has to be.
Well, if I could have a moment of personal preference here, I'd like to give our listeners a insight in the life of Bill. My wife, Carol, we have 36 years of marriage under our belt, and she was with me when I became a steward the first time, and then she was against me running for steward a second time because she remembered the first time, and I persuaded her to let me do it, and I did a fine job. She's always sat there and told me that the system was rigged against people like ourselves stepping up. And she attended the Texas National Convention with me and saw firsthand the politicking that is done at the National Convention to get the people they wanted on the national board. And to this day, she understands my commitment to the union, to the craft. She doesn't understand why I put myself through this. And I try to explain to her, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for everybody else who doesn't have a voice, for the people who aren't willing to step up for themselves or can't. This is not a personal vendetta against Don Matson. This is a vendetta against the system. The system has failed us. When I told her I was running again for president, she goes, "Why do you put yourself through this?" I said, "Because I care." She goes, "I know you care." She goes, "But why are you doing it? You know the system's rigged." And I said, "But one day, it might not be. And I can't pass up on that opportunity."
I
And she goes,
completely.
she she says to me, she goes, "Well, if you worked as much as you did as a steward, how many hours are you going to work as president?" I said, "I'll cut it down to 20, maybe 18. But the thing of it is that we do these podcasts, we answer questions. I answer phone calls from stewards. I from other offices. I answer people's questions from across the country. Why? Because I really care. And it's a fault of mine, okay? But it's probably the best thing about me is that I may be an asshole, I may be angry, I may be passionate, but deep down, I really care. And nobody on that board can say that.
I can contest he really does. From personal experience, I could probably cry in his shoulder if I had to. He does. No, he
Yes,
he
you
he
could.
really does care. And we all care. I mean, that was the whole point when I ran 2 years ago as an RCA. I mean, yeah, maybe to stir the pot a little bit, but I wanted RCAs and newer regulars and those people to know that yes, you can do this. You can be involved as a leave replacement. You can be involved. You can run for national officer as an RCA. I know I'll probably go down in history for doing that. I wanted everybody to know on all levels that, you can do it. Our national constitution just says you have to be in a member of good standing for 3 years in order to run for national office. That's all it says. It doesn't say you have to serve your time as an ADR, as a DR, as an executive committeeman, and then move up to the other top 5 positions. It doesn't say that. It just says you be a member in good standing for 3 years in order to run for office, be elected to office. That's all it says.
When I stepped up last year at National Convention, I was already being asked to run for office from carriers. A lot of them were like, "You should get into national office. You have the passion, you have the desire to help this craft." And when sitting there at National Convention last year, I was debating it. I actually almost did not step up because it was going to be a 3-day campaign, and I had absolutely no one to assist me besides a few select people. And I did that because I felt that this craft needed guidance better in the steward system. The steward system, as I've said, is the backbone of this union to protect the craft. And in 3 days, I got 124 votes from people who didn't even know who I was until that day I stepped up on that stage and announced my nomination. 124 votes. And people are like, "Oh, you lost by a big margin." No, I won a lot in 3 days.
Did better
But
than my 38 vote.
but my desire to help this craft is my biggest push. And as soon as I left National Convention, the very next day, I had tons of messages of people saying I should run again, that I could make a difference. People that attended National Convention were messaging me saying I should run again. And so I decided to do it again, this time actually running a real campaign because the craft asked me to, and I listened to the craft. Those are the only people I answer to. I don't answer to management. I don't answer to union leadership. I answer to the craft. I help the craft. I listen to the craft. I help answer questions for the craft. I want to make sure our craft is the most educated and passionate people for the contract because I don't want management walking over this craft. I don't want management destroying this craft. And I don't want to see this craft go down in flames because nobody's willing to support it in the next 5 years. Because the biggest fear I have out of all this is for my brothers and sisters to be destroyed by a system that doesn't take care of them.
Here, here.
Exactly, and I know where you're coming from, James. I mean, I had even from mid states last year, I had people asking me if I was going to run again last year, and I had already decided prior I wasn't going to run last year because it's my daughter's senior year of high school and all the other bombshells we've had recently. But I had a lot of people that approached me at nationals saying, are you running? No, I'm not running this year. I explained why. Okay, everybody completely understands. Family first. And but then I had, those same ones as we're all saying byes on the last night are all like, "You're coming back next year, right? You're running next year." When you have that many people reach out to you and say, "We want to see you back next year. We want to see you back up on that stage next year." That's why I did it. And my daughter, even in the predicament we're in now, knows the passion that I have and flat out has told me, "Mom, you're going to Reno." Like, okay, because she sees the passion that I have for the craft. She understands completely. Every single, one of my coworkers knows what my plans are, and they know they all reach out to me, whether it's in the office or after work with questions and stuff, even though I'm no longer their steward. I'll come back from a booster convention or a conference and I'll get, "So what'd you find out?" They're always asking me, "What's going on? What'd you find out? Have you heard anything?" Because they know that I care and I look out and keep my ears and eyes open for that information for them to keep them informed as well. And I would do the same thing for the entire craft across the country. Keeping you guys informed of what is going on and the pertinent information that you should know because we care. But at that point, guys, I think we're going to wrap this up tonight. Anything else either one of you have on your mind, real quick?
No, I think we're done. I'm just glad that Don's keeping us informed. It was entertaining, and he kept it brief, which I appreciate because I thank you very much, Mr. President. No, I'm done. I think we, between the four of us, we covered the full spectrum there, and I think everybody listening understands that we really really care, and we're concerned the path that this craft is on, and if it continues, God knows what it's going to look like in 3-5 years from now.
I agree completely. It's scary to think about what could be coming down the pipeline, and you see it over on the city side. Nobody knows what they're negotiating on the city side either. They have the little rap sessions on it, but really they don't get any information either. You compare what the UAW is putting out, the Teamsters are putting out, and stuff like that, and we're getting basically crickets compared to that. And between the three of us up here and what we've talked about today and the passion that we have, I really can tell you we really mean that we're all in this together.
We are. I know, we get questions and comments on all the platforms, and we, even if it's a private message or, we share it with each other to get input from each other. If we were to be elected and opened up comments on the Facebook page and there was some pretty hurtful stuff up there, I'm sure we would all get together and discuss this out and how we could approach this person to try and make things better with them.
Remember that James brought up the woman that was crying about the toxic atmosphere in her office.
Mm-hmm.
What would it meant to the 1,200 people in that hall if the president of the NRLCA came down, hugged her, gave her his personal card, and said, "Call me"?
Or even just the director of steward operations, getting with that person, finding out the office, finding out the situation, and personally seeing to it that that office had union representation there taking care of that problem as soon as practically possible.
How about Director Steward Operations come up with a timeline for getting newly elected local stewards trained?
Oh, you mean like the young lady waiting since last April?
And 12 months is especially way too long, especially after being elected by the people in your office. I can understand a month or two.
I was going to say 30
setting
to
up the
60
stuff.
these days, yes.
Yeah, I can understand setting that up, getting a few people together to do the training. But if you're not able to get a few people, then a one-on-one training session is even better, because then you not only have the training, but you also have the opportunity to have the back and forth with questions and answers. There's
Absolutely.
no reason. There's no reason a craft member who has been elected to a position has to wait 6 months, a year for their training. Because when the national board gets elected, they're immediately sworn into their offices. When a state board gets elected, they're immediately sworn in their offices. Why is it that our local stewards aren't immediately getting taken care of?
Getting
I got a better
certified.
question. I have a better question for you. If you can run this organization 2 years during COVID utilizing Zoom, then why can't you train a steward in the same fashion?
I was just gonna say that. Yes.
I was trained on Zoom,
I did enhancement training via Zoom.
so it's possible.
It
Yeah,
is.
throwing that out there.
That could be a good resolution, yes.
Yes.
I think that would fall under Constitution binding.
James, number 10.
Yeah, number 11 actually.
Okay. Oh, you snuck one in. Okay. You really need a
But
hobby.
I have
you
one,
do.
and I have one.
Right,
It's called
right,
protecting
right.
the craft.
Right. Writing resolutions. I'm sorry.
Okay, guys.
Protecting the craft.
All right. Wrap it up.
Let's get it
Yeah,
done.
we're gonna
Yes.
wrap this up. Like I said before, I appreciate the attempt at transparency, but I appreciate the attempt. There was no transparency. There was, again, I mean, baby steps, preemie baby steps. I'm thinking it is, but there just needs to be more transparency and engagement with the craft to ensure the membership that you are there working for us. And
I'm going to disagree with Kristen on this.
Okay.
I don't think this is an attempt of transparency. I think this is lip service, just throwing it out there to say, "Oh, well, we've been keeping you informed." We didn't learn anything at all. Okay, none of the proposals that were discussed, nothing. It's just an attempt to show transparency without actually showing us anything. It's like showing somebody a new car, but there's no engine.
Oh, like the prototype for the next generation?
GDP.
Yes. Which I have yet to see. Okay, we're not going to talk about vehicles. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But, all right, guys, we appreciate those that sat with us throughout this. And we will be back Sunday at our normal time.
Everybody be safe. Get home to your families.
So you love them and leave them is what you do, huh, Bill?
Yeah, yeah.